Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyandam Vande Guru Parampara Saganavavdu Saganapunattu Sagaviryam Karavavagai Tejasvina Vadidamastamavat Vishavagai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Yogena Chittasya Patena Vacham Malam Sairasya Cha Vaityakena Yopa Karottam Pravaram Munina Patanjali Pranjali Manatosmi. So good morning. So we discussed in the last session about those who genuinely try and attain samadhis of different stages of Samprajna Samadhi, but still fall short of the perfection. As a result, changes happen that they do not progress to what is a natural consequence of Samprajna Samadhi is Asamprajna Samadhi. So we just recap that. And Patanjali calls that Samadhi as Bhava Pratyaya Samadhi. So we ignore those who do not take yoga as a sadhana. They just lead a life without any spiritual intention, spiritual progress. But they can be a good people in this world. So they go through this process of Bhava Pratyayam, Samsaram. They born, they die. Dying means disembodiment of the physical body. They go up to the Pitir Loka if they have sufficient account in their credit, or otherwise they take immediate birth into some form. So they keep on wandering in this cycle of birth and death. So we just leave them aside. But those who recognize the Narajanmam Durlapam, and therefore identifying this opportunity for spiritual pursuits, start doing things which steer them towards virtues. So when they start doing these sadhanas, they probably will attain the Vidarka Samadhi or Vichara Samadhi. Remember that Vidarka Samadhi is a state of mind which is focused, concentrated on the object of contemplation in a gross form. So one is able to attain Chitta Nirodham when they stand in front of their Ishta Devata, for example, or any object of contemplation, for example. The Vichara Samadhi is where they transcend this gross form, and they're able to focus the mind on subtle thoughts. You know, if you if you leave the God aside, maybe a scientist or maybe a sculptor or an artist who just focuses his mind completely on the ideation of this project and attain certain state of mind, one with an object, is a Vichara Samadhi. So when we are able to, which always imply that these individuals are able to control the mind to a certain extent to focus on what they need to focus. Now, suppose if they get disembodied, they meet the death in this world, what happened to them? So they are coming back to this world again, reborn, and they progress in the next lives from where they left. We are going to see that. So they are not still an evolved person. They're not liberated yet. In fact, Patanjali don't even call them a yogi. They are aspirants. They are sadhakas, like you and I. So the important point is here, it is all reinvested in you Like, Arjuna asked the question, so what happened, if I die before all this happened? And Bhagavan says, don't worry. You'll come back to this world and continue where you left. So therefore, there is a continuous perpetual evolution. The very reason that maybe some of us are interested in this kind of conversation and maybe practicing this, because we are getting hold of what we left behind in the last Janma. So even an iota of contribution in this Janma is a step towards progress. But those we pick up and then move on further to a state of bliss, Ananda Samadhi. Just recall, if you're revising what we discussed, Ananda Samadhi is a state of mind where you transcend even the subtle thoughts about the object of contemplation. That means the object is no more your contemplation, but the instrument that is bringing the contemplation to you is the focus. Your mind is your focus. Your senses are your focus. Therefore, you don't need an external object to make you blissful, a God image to make you blissful. You can just concentrating on what is that gives me this knowledge. So when you are in that mode, Patanjali says, you'll be in an extreme ecstasy and joy. All this we should experience in life. Everything is a practical science. But there is a fear when the ecstasy is immense. For a minute you think about it, then you become blissful in nature. Then there is a tendency to think that you attained the yoga. And to further complicate this blissful nature of yours also brings out the latent powers of your mind. You start seeing things that others could not see before. So this further amplifies our ego. Remember, the ego is not gone yet. Mind has not gone yet. Samprajna Samadhi. You know exactly what you are achieving, what you are getting. Therefore, the I is always there. So the power can be intense and immense. And if you don't decide to move forward, you stay there and accumulate more powers. And then when you disembody in this world, you become a Videha, one who does not have the gross body. You may say everybody who's dead is Videka, right? Videka Mukti, we called it. Now, we don't include them here. When you die without any attainment of mind control, remember, you go back to Vedanta. When you die, when I die, I go with my subtle body and my prana. We say the prana is gone, right? When somebody is dead, the prana is gone. The prana is not just the breathing. Breathing is just a gross expression of prana. Prana is the life force which is binding the Sukshma body with the Sthula Sarira. So it unties the Sthula Sarira because the Sthula Sarira is the Bhoga Ayadanam. It's an instrument for enjoyment. The enjoyment quota for us in this world is accounted by the Chitragupta. Again, you are in a consciousness. What he needs to enjoy, what he needs to suffer. To enjoy and suffer, you need the tool. Tool is your body. Well, you finish everything, your quota is finished, gone. So the prana unwinds. The unwinding the prana is what called pranavastha. The avastha, they say, is suffer. It's actually suffering for us to see somebody is suffering, but it's liberating them because the gross body is untied. The subtle body goes out. So those who die and go, they want to enjoy because the mind has not quietened. It's not a tranquil mind yet. Sukha Dukkham is needed. Sukham is needed. For Sukham, I need this body. Therefore, they wander to get the next possible gross body. and the search is fulfilled to them depending on the intensity of the search, that's samskaras, and they attain the body. You know, playing piano all the time in my life, and I'm not able to get enough time. Family pressure, I couldn't find a teacher. I have so much of intense love for piano, and I die. And that drives me to take a body, to be born in circumstances where this skill will come back to me. So we ignore that. This is the Prakriti part. This happens in the cycle. There are Sastric declaration for that. But here we are talking about those who have no need for this gross bodies. They are the Videkas. They are liberated from this gross body. They know this, okay, I don't need this gross body because I know this gross body is only for the bhumi where these pancha bhutas create objects. The world is, any planet you see that are gross form, there you need to go and enjoy, you need to have a gross body for the planet. But when I am going to be in a subtle world, see, between sun and moon, between the earth to the sun, it's not empty space. There are so many lokas. So these people called Videkas, Devas, small g gods. Why they are gods? Because they are powerful. They are subtle in nature. They can manipulate the gross formulation. They can create thunder. They can create rain. They are all gross. They become Vayu Bhagavan, Agni Bhagavan. But they are also not liberated. Because they have focused on one single power. They are not Sarvagyan. Vayu knows about everything about the Vayu principles. Fullness of Vayus come. You become the Vayu Bhagavan. And you manipulate the whole universe with your gross power. But then, to be Sarvagyan, you need to really know everything else. The Jnanam is not there. So they also have to manifest again. Then there are those, when Devas, then they manifest in this world, and the Purana says, Smriti says, the best place to manifest and then attain progress is not celestial bodies, but in a human bodies and bhumi. That's why Narajanmam Durlabham. That's why Hiranyakasipu was asked to come down. He was a Dwarapalaka. He's already a subtle body. He doesn't need gross body. He was next to Samibhyam, near the Paramatma. But his Ahambhavam has made him come down to take. So those who take the next stage of Samadhi called Asmita Samadhi. Remember, Asmita is, they even transcend this Ananda state and say, Aham. Ritru. Not the instrument of knowledge, but the knower, the experiencer. But still there is a trace of Ahambhavam. Ahankaram is there. I is there. But because they even transcend the subtle body. Remember, the subtle body never dies. When we say physically death means the gross body decays. We are in a subtle form. Therefore, from today I can think myself is not the body, but my mind. That's fine. That's progress. But for those who transcend the mind, so which body they are in? If you remember Vedanta, they are in the causal body. What is causal body? Causal body is avidya. What causes everything? What causes everything in this world? The physical form is the Prakriti. When the Prakriti becomes a form, it becomes Vikriti. When it becomes subtle form, goes inside the causal nature, it becomes Prakriti. So those become Prakriti Layas. It's a paribhaksha in a Patanjali's term, technical term, Prakriti Laya. So now you understand, we are in a very formidable position as a human being. With the power of a mind, we can manipulate our passage in progress to be a cycle of birth coming without any control, or I can become a very focused person for progress, and over many janmas I may perfect myself. When I perfect it, I can become a deva. I still perfect it, I become a Prakriti Layas. So this is, what is the guarantee for this? This is Arjuna has asked this question, and Bhagavan said, no, you come back, and where you left, you continue. So he says in the 6th chapter, Purva Abhyasena Tenaiva Hriyate Yeshu Abhisaha Jignasur Abhiyagyasya Shabda Brahmati Vartade. Purva Abhyasena Tenaiva. Tenaiva means on account of, because of that. Because of what? Purva Abhyasena. In the old Janma, in the old birth, because of your Abhyasam. So, Hriyate Ashobi. Saha. Ashobi means without helplessness. You cannot resist it. Irresistible. Saha, that person is attracted, really attracted helplessly towards what? Whatever the Purva Abhyasa. And therefore he becomes a Jignasu. Jignasu is one who is interested in the knowledge. And for him, Shabda Brahmadi Vartade. Shabda Brahmadi, here the meaning should be taken like this. All the Shabda Brahma, all the Veda Dhyanam, rituals, Purvamimamsam, worship, physical worship, all this is, he transcends all this. Understand? It's not that he hates it. It's not that, don't take it like this. He sees beyond it. So therefore, this is where the guarantee is given by Bhagavan. Therefore, whatever we do in the Janma is not going to be wasted. It's an investment. And we take a different path. So this is what we saw in the last class. I just reiterated in a slightly different way. The sutra we saw was Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam. This also answers a question. If somebody asks a question, I don't have belief in God, I am not a religious person. It's very fashionable to say, I'm not a religious person, I don't believe in God, I'm a scientist and things like that. Fine. Still you will follow through yoga, you will still get samadhi. Still you get a nirbija samadhi. But that samadhi may give you power, but that will be called Bhava Pratyaya Samadhi. Even though it is nirbijam, it is not going to make you beyond that state. So we saw that. So therefore the lesson is, let's not have Bhava Pratyaya Samadhi. That means anything I'm doing in this world, I bring in a spiritual value to it. This is what the message of it. The lesson is that samadhi I'm getting or not, that's a different thing. The abhyasam I do, the prayatnam I do, for anything I do for this worldly life, I wrap it in a spiritual wrapper. Then it doesn't become a bhava pratyaya. It's going to be something else. What is that? That is that which leads to perfection. What is perfection means? In Samprajnana Samadhi, perfection means you are now getting Asamprajnana Samadhi. That means you are getting Atma Jnana. How to get that? So this is the next sutra. To attain perfection in Samprajnana Samadhi. That means not to fall into the Bhava Pratyayam. What do we have to do? So Patanjali does not say this, but Vyasa, Shankara all quote what's called Upaya Pratyaya. Bhava Pratyaya looks like, without any focus, without any special focus. Therefore, Upaya. Upaya means the means, a prescribed means. So there's a prescribed means. If you follow that means, you will be getting a perfection in Sampragyata Samadhi. So we don't want Bhava Pratyayam, we want Upaya Pratyayam. It's nothing new, it's just reinforcing some interesting things. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Itaresham. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Itaresham. So here Patanjali is telling, let's take the Itaresham. Itaresham means others. Iteration, that vibhakti, others, of others. Of others of who? We just not talked about those who are following Bhava Pratyayam. Not them, the others. The others who want a perfect Sampragnata Samadhi. Okay, what happened to them? For them, Purvaka. Purvaka means preceded by, on account of, due to. So he is going to say, for others, due to something is going to happen. What is something going to happen? The perfection in Samprajna Samadhi. This you need to fill in those gaps. So the perfection in Samprajna Samadhi happens to those on account of what? Shraddha. They must have Shraddha in what they are doing. We've seen Shraddha many times. We talked about it. Shraddha is a faith, belief, commitment, unwavering attention, not giving up, holding on to. In fact, Vyasa says, Shraddha Mata. Shraddha is like Mata, like mother. What does a mother do? Mother, sometimes child doesn't care to eat. Food is not important for him. So mother knows that he's hungry. It needs to eat. Mother feeds her, forces her against her will. For everything in life, mother is the, everything. Mother is the one who nourishes. From the womb, Shraddha is like that. Would anybody hate mother? Would anybody get rid of the mother? No. So like that, we should really treat Shraddha. Shraddha is like Amma, mother, Ma. So if you have Shraddha, here what did the Shraddha here means? Here means taking faith in Patanjali's words, in the Guru's words, in the Abhyasa, having confidence. Now, I'm trying yoga, I'm going to this class, every Sunday, I spend some time trying to see is there any use in it. Doesn't work. No, I'm trying to practice dhyana. I've been 4 or 5 months, I'm doing it. Let's see. That's not Shraddha. Shraddha is, I will get it. I'm still not getting the right means to approach it. So that's very important. So I need not say anything anymore on this. Very simple, but very difficult to acquire and holding on to. Virya. Virya means literally means vitality, strength, power. But here, strength of endurance, perseverance. Now, if you keep on coming every class, if you keep on practicing every day, that's a strength of endurance. That's a viryam. But you don't need to try to acquire viryam from anywhere else. Why? The reason you do that every day, because you have Shraddha. See the beauty of it. So once you get Shraddha, virya becomes a byproduct of it. You take anybody who is successful in life, who applied the virya, in delivering what they're planning to deliver because they believed in their idea. If you throw 10 times the stone, the mango will fall. Somebody tell you. You valiantly start throwing. You threw 9 stones, it didn't fall. And many of us will say, yeah, give up. Manusyanam sagasreshu kaschit yati siddhaye. Bhagavan says, thousands of people try, only one gets it. That's because the Shraddha is not strong. It's not the Viryam, the Shraddha. So therefore, Viryam is a second upayam. Second upayam is a byproduct of the first upayam. How does the Viryam is staying with you all the time? Now you do that, you listen to this class and then you say you finish and you are, after 5 years, somebody meets you and you are doing meditating in the morning, 5 to 6, you're doing it, and somebody come and ask you, why are you doing it? And what do you say? Well, I have Shraddha. Shraddha on what? I remember, I read in the book or the teacher told me, I remember that if I do it, I will achieve it. And I have been doing it before. So what are you now getting? You're getting the smriti, remembrance. Here the smriti is not the Manusmriti or Bhagavad Gita like that. Smriti is here, your remembrance, which feeds back into the Shraddha. But this is coming from a byproduct of Virya. Do you understand? Because, as I was telling you before, it really happened to me because I was going to the library in North Harrow and I normally go there and library is closed. I have the knowledge of it. But I went to the same building, Smriti, Virya. Because my Virya, I've been always going to library. It has gone into memory. Memory takes them. So same way, when you are having Shraddha, Virya comes out, Virya reinforces samskara into Smriti, Smriti feeds Shraddha, Shraddha gives Virya, Virya gives Smriti. You see, you compounds it, you become stronger and stronger and stronger. So, but if you listen to one day and then you don't come back in 1 month or don't do it in 1 month, it's gone. Now, if you do all that, you have samadhi as upadhi. So here, please bear in mind, here the samadhi is not the lakshya sadhana. Here samadhi is one of the ashtangas. Remember that I'm going to tell you later. Dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. The samadhi, absorption. Absorbed in the thought. As it means dhyana. You can say concentrated contemplation. So you get that because your Shraddha, Virya, and Smriti, you get that. And when you are in Samadhi more times, again they get reinforced. Now, well, this looks similar to what I had before. Without Shraddha, I wouldn't have really sat down and do the Bhava Pratyaya. There also I do everyday practice. What's the difference? The difference here is Samadhi leads to Prajna, Atma Jnana. The single most motivation for you is the Atma Jnana. How do I get this motivation? When you are in Asmita Samadhi, that is, you are alone on yourself, but I have the thought I, Asmi. But the enormous power that you have accumulated through your Ananda Samadhi and others is overpowering you to become a powerful I in this world, putting a board there, yogi, siddha, whatever title I want to put myself, run an ashram and preach people, do good things, fine. But when I think and say, who am I? And the I is attached to me, I cannot really get rid of it to see it differently because this ahankara. Therefore, I really yearn for it. the I, the notional I, yearn for it, to find the true I. Therefore, my Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, all focus towards the knowledge about the self. Therefore, the Samadhi reveals Atmajnana. This is the benefit of perfect Samprajnata Samadhi. You have not achieved liberation. You have not achieved Jivan Mukti, but you achieved Atmajnanam. A cusp has been opened to you. This is the difference between Bhava Pratyaya and Upaya Pratyaya. It's all sound very high sounding words. Don't worry, it's just simply make every action you do a spiritual action, everything will fall through into this. Okay. But why is that Ahampavam is not, Ahankaram is not going away from me? That's one question. Other question is, well, this Samprajna Samadhi, the perfect one you was talking about, with the Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, how quickly I can get through? How much time I have? This is a very natural question, right? You are interested in it. You go to the gym and you want to be a six-packs in your body, and the instructor says, this is a treadmill, stand up on it. You run for 5 minutes and say, look, what's happening? How long is it going to take? We ask the same question to Patanjali. How long does it take? When can I achieve it? This is interesting because that shows a sign of Shraddha, because you have to really yearn for it. Like a child, child, when you say, look, I'll buy you this train for Christmas, it'll forget the Christmas part. Christmas is now 6 months away. Train is very interesting. It'll be starting Dhyanam on train. Mommy, you said train, you remember train? It'll just reinforcing on you, not giving up. That kind of propensity, that kind of attachment we should have to this higher goal. So Patanjali says in the next one, Tivra Samveghanam Sanha. Oh, today we didn't read this result, so we'll do it later. So, Tivra. So there are 3 words here. Tivra Samveghanam Asanaha. So Tivra means intense, strong, very forceful. If it is intense, Samveghanam means of tremendous speed, of great velocity, great speed, greater momentum. So he's giving you 2 adjectives, very intense and great momentum, if you take those 2 words. So with great intensity and with great momentum, what happened? Asanaha. Asanaha means, its usage tell you, it is very next to you. It's near you, imminent. So you need to fill up the gaps. What is near? The perfect Samadhi is near. So what is the question? How quickly I can get the perfection? And he says, when you have the intensity and the vehemence or this momentum, then it is almost there. It's not there. He's not saying it is there, almost there. So he's putting a little caveat there. We'll see what it is. So what is this intense thing? What is this momentum he's talking about? So we talked about the Upaya Prapti. Upaya Pratyaya. Therefore, we should take this as Upayam. So Upayam has to be intense, and it has to be samvegna, greater momentum. In Abhyasa must be a greater momentum. So if you bring intensity and great momentum into what you are committing to do, it's common sense. It's nothing complicated than this. You want to go to the Himalayan trekking, 30-day crash course, 6 hours every day practice in the bench. You got to do it. Intense. Every day. You can't just do one after every month. So this is what he's saying. So you just practice it and do it there. Then ask the question, who are those people who can get those things? Because it's not very clear. So he's going to say a little bit more on this. Mridu madhyadi matratvat tatopi visheshaka. He's just qualifying now. We'll take last word. So tata tatopi visheshaka. Remove the sandhi. Tata api visheshaka. Tata, from those. Go back to the previous sutra. Those who are doing with high intense and samvegnam, that means who was really practicing very well. On that, also, mark the word also, we are going to use it again. Also, Visheshara, there's a distinction. So now he's further qualifying. Okay, you go to the gym, everybody is running around, you can see them, but you see those guy with the blue shirt, watch him. He is special. So he's now pointing out some speciality in this practice. Because we want to be like that, right? Mridu, mridu, the first word, mridu means mild, slow, soft. Second phrase is mridu madhyadima. So madhya is medium. Adimatratvat. Adimatra means tivra. You can have tivra. So slow, fast, and ultimate. So doesn't tell you anything, right? That's what sutra is all about. It tells you that person is very special. That person is very special. And that person is very special. So you look at three persons, yellow, green, and blue. Three persons. Then you ask the question, what's the speciality about them? Mridu, madhya, adimatra. He's just showing mild, medium, intense. So he's basically therefore bringing down a final gradation in what he said in the previous sutra. So upayam needs to be multiplied by the abhyasam, application of the upayam. So upayam, intensity of the upayam, you can measure it. The intensity of samvegnam, you can measure it. Now he gives you three measures: mridu, madhya, tivra. So the intensity is mridu, madhya, tivra. Now, how many people you can have this combination? That means three types of upaya: mridu upayam, madhya upayam, tivra upayam. That means your memory is mridu, or your shraddha is mridu, or you can have a medium shraddha, or you can have tivra shraddha. So this fourth thing I told you, shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, all this can be either mridu or madhya or tivra. Give example of tivra samadhi, tivra shraddha. Tivra shraddha is shraddha of Prahalada. He was being thrown away in all kinds of dangerous things, in the sea, on the mountain, under the elephant. His shraddha on God is so intense. Tivra. Draupadi had the same thing. She moved from mritu to madhya to tivra. She looked at all these her husbands to help her out. Nobody helped. Then thought about Krishna, prayed to him, then gave up all her holding on her dress, surrendered to her. Tivra. So therefore, three types of shraddha, virya, and all that, three types of application of it. Therefore, there are 9 types of aspirants. You can have a mridu upayam and have a tivra abhyasam, or a tivra shraddha and a mridu samvega. So you know the answer now. To be the fastest, you have to have Tivra Abhyasa, Tivra Upaya. So Patanjali is giving an answer because he can't give you in calendar days because it's in your hand. So if your intensity can be ultimate, if Samvegam Abhyasam is ultimate, you'll get it at any moment. That's what he says. Now there is a question. So all this is for me. Everything is knowledge I got. It's all my responsibility, right? I have to have intense Shraddha. I try very hard. I'm not able to get it. Why is that? It's not that lack of my willingness to do it. The moment I hear the smell of masala dosa, my bhakti is gone. I try to control it. What do I do? Now, if this question is the right question, you should not pretend that, okay, we don't have because unless we understand our weakness, we cannot cure it. It's very important to take criticism in life because criticism is a real blessing because, you can have a parrot to tell you are doing everything right. They are the worst enemies for you. But we cannot take criticism because criticism is affecting our long nose of ego. So therefore, we need a way that the inherent weakness in us to go away. And Patanjali has not given any such views so far. So that's how now we start a completely a new section. When I know that I'm inadequate, what do I need? Patanjali therefore says, Ishvara Pranidhanatva. Patanjali brings in Ishvara into the picture. So far, he has not talked about Ishvara. He just followed the Sankhya Matam. Sankhya, Kapila, he took from Vedas many things, but he said he applied his yugam. For him, it's two things, Purusha and Prakriti. They combine, they create the world, and they separate to get liberation. There's no need of a God. So Sankhya went that way. Mahabharata talks about Sankhya's knowledge is the most powerful knowledge. So do not criticize Kapila. Kapila gave up. In fact, Kapila is also a Mahavishnu's avatar in Puranas. But there was a purpose of each avatara to come and give you a perspective of it. So there was no God, there is no Ishvara there in Sankhya philosophy. So therefore, Nyaya Vaisheshikas took Sankhyas and then elaborated into more logic, enticing logic, like the smell of good food entice my senses. Sometimes good conversation, good debates, good arguments entice the intellectuals, It's again a crazy feeling. It's not always a virtue. But that feeding all that. Even those who believed in God come to the point, well, I look at it, Vedas, I look at all the Shastras, I look at all the rituals. If I do this Putrakamishtyagam, which is reciting all these mantras, putting all those stuff into the fire, feeding Brahmins, feeding the poor people money, I get sense. And I don't even do that. I pay somebody to do it, and they do it for me. Yajamana Sankalpam, I sit on that. I get the benefits. Why do I need God? Every karma, if Vedas are true, if I do it, Prayojanam should come there. Why should I need a God? This is called Purva Mimamsa. Mimamsam means Pujya Vichara. Vichara, inquiry, is divine inquiries. So these Mimamsikas, like this, like Vishwamitra, like all this, Bhava Samadhi yogis, who found themselves a position of elevated being, they said, I don't need. So Dakshin was one of such king who attained this Bhava Yogam. He did yagas, yajnas, He didn't invite Ishvara Pranidhanam is not there. Pranidhanam means, the word Pranidhanam means in the presence of. So Purvamimamsika went through. That's why Buddha got very annoyed. Buddha was not atheist. Of course, Buddhist disciple took his silent eloquence to mean different things. And okay, that's a different talk altogether. But Buddha's time, the same thing happened. The Purvamimamsikas started imposing rituals and rites, and everything has got a karma. And those who followed that without understanding the spiritual potential of it become caste-ridden. Oh no, somebody sent me a video clip yesterday, and I was just watching it, and it's about Vaishnavas do this namam, this churnam they put on the head, and this is made out of a white clay, and the clay is made by very poor peasants in a village, and they really toil for many months to take this, break the rock and take those, powder those rock, put in the water, melt it, and pick them a clay and beat it up, and then make it into a little, like a chalk bar. And they get some 5 paise or something like that in India. And the shopkeepers sell it for one rupee and export for $1. And we proudly take it and then put it on a thing, and we pray to God. And the moment we wear it, we become very spiritually powerful and all that. I have nothing wrong with this. But what happened to those people who did all this? They do that. For them, Ishvara Pranidhanam. When he's breaking this thing, he worships this hammer and then he beats the rock. So all these symbols don't play. Yaksha playing the symbols. And what happened? The Maya Shakti came and destroyed him. What are you talking about? What can you achieve? How can you transcend me? I am the Maya, I am the Prakriti. You can't transcend me without having my consciousness, Brahman, Shivam, come there. So that's the reason why I'm talking about this, because it's a very important turning point from this sutra, because Patanjali here is saying Ishvara Pranidhanatva. So Ishvara means God. Here's Ishvara Pranidhanatva, gods. Pranidhanat means, literally means in the presence of. Okay, I want something else I want to say. Okay. But also the other important word I wanted you to remember is the last word, va. In Sanskrit, va means are. So if you now compare this sutra with the previous sutra, we conclude the samadhi attainment process. Here he says, also by practicing in God's presence. No, you're not also, or by practicing God's presence. So immediate understanding, therefore, is I can ignore everything, because or is a very profound major term. You do all this, or you do this. Then you can say, you can do a logical separation, because the or is coming outside of it. I can ignore everything. In God's presence, I get samadhi. So there are schools of thought which took this sutra by itself. Sometimes when you take a sentence from a speech from somebody giving you, it'll give you a different interpretation. That's how all this Twitter and everybody plays games on everybody's quote and misquotes. So here it says, therefore, just by God's practice, pranidhanam, you can achieve this. Therefore, ignore yoga, ignore everything, just be, we call it a bhakti yoga. I'll just surrender to God, and then I attain everything else. Is it not true? Of course it is true. If God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and everything is his creation, he can do anything. Of course, it has to be true. It could be true. It may be true. It may not be true. Why? You see, the previous sutra, we see a word also. So therefore, if you break the also into this one, the va should be taken as cha. And. But then why Patanjali put va? Why can't he say cha? You will understand this when we go to 28, 29 sutras and also the second chapter. Because in the first chapter, God is optional for Patanjali. Because first chapter, if you see, all these are very high sounding words for us, right? All this we learned so far is a very high sounding thing. At least for me, it looks all something which I haven't really attained or comprehended. Because this is about those who are dominant with Sattva Guna, who has got already Atma Jnanam inclined. For them, the God's presence in this practice is also important, but not the important, but also important. But he's going to make it the important for those who are not there, I mean 99.9% of us, with the Rajas Tamas dominant, because he's going to make the Ishvara Pranidhanam as a niyama in the Ashtanga Yoga. He's going to make it, you have to really follow. So since he's going to say that you have to follow God's presence, who am I to say it can be R? Even though literally it means R. Therefore, for you and I, we should take that in doing all these things, see, even what Krishna says in Gita, Chaturvida bhajante mam janas kinorchana artho jignasu artharthi jnanicha tanisha. I have 4 kinds of bhaktas, devotees. So if you take pranidhanam as a bhakti, it's a Vishesha Bhakti. Bhagavan says 4 kinds of bhaktas. Some who comes for trouble, I have this now COVID symptoms. Please let me get the second vaccine fast. God, if you do it, I'll come and do pratana. Okay. Or we have no fear, no trouble, but I'm enjoying something. I want to enjoy it more. God, you can pray to God. The third one says, look, I know all this, but I want to have some knowledge. Jignasu. Fourth one is one who says, I know everything, God. I just want to be in your presence. I want to be in front of you. Jnani, Pranidhanam, Saranagati, surrender. Saranagati is a most important concept. And in fact, in Vaishnava Matam, it is the concept. There is no second thought. It's about Tiruvadi. That is Adi. You know why Adi means feet. Now, when there is a rain comes in, do you go under the tree or on top of the tree? No, you go under the tree. Because shelter is always at the feet of greatness. But this Saranagati is not, it's not easy. You cannot just say, okay, I don't do all those things. This looks like an easy way for me. I can't do all this sitting down and pranayamam, dhyanam, all this complicated. I can be a, Ishvara Pranidhanam. I can do. How? I do namaskaram to Swami in the morning. I go to the temple, put money in the hundi. Every function I celebrate. That's not Pranidhanam. Pranidhanam is absolute surrender. Surrender is also a karma. People think the surrender is a virtue, but it's a virtuous karma. Why I say karma? Because it requires abhyasam. You cannot surrender without putting effort on it. That's the reason why in Sanatana Dharma, we inculcate the habit to children to surrender, to fall at the feet of elders. The elder person may be an evil person. At least he's elder than you in age. So in every aspect of it, by age, by knowledge, sometimes you fall at the feet of an young guru who is 20 years younger than me. I will fall down on his feet because he is above on certain things. But this surrendering is not an easy thing. Because the ego comes in. And it's very difficult to surrender to another human being. Honestly, you can surrender to a cow, in the backside of the cow, you can put some kumkum, and because you learned Smriti, Purana said, Kamadenu, Ambal is there, fall at his feet. You can come around a tree, the tree looks like, a celestial tree. You can worship the Vigraham statues. But somebody comes and say that he is imparting knowledge. No. Even if you do surrender, we surrender it and say, okay, is he worthy of my surrender? Shraddha is not there. So it is therefore needs to be practiced. Shraddha is needed. So don't take it easy that Pranidhanam is simple, but it needs to add to that one, because what Bhagavan says, if you are looking at me, called abhidhyana. This is a term that Bhashyakara uses. Abhidhyana means that I am completely giving me my contemplative thoughts on you, the God. When I do that, you will give me anugraha. And he does. He's just earnestly waiting to bestow his grace on you. And when he pours grace on you, your abhidhyanam increases more. You fall on his feet more. He pours more grace. You fall on his feet more. So some way the intensity goes up. That's the reason why. Because for Prahalad, it's much easier because her mother was, Smriti was there, because Narada has given him. His mother is singing all the time. Like Devaki was, lullaby of Devaki was like that, imparting knowledge. So it reinforces. You see, in another way, I want to say how this Sharanagati, I got how many minutes? 1 minute, but let me talk about it. See, there are 3 steps you can see the surrender. The first step, I would say, even before I say that, to look at this surrendering, who is surrendering? Who means my role. What am I? Who am I surrendering? Who am I surrendering to? And what am I surrendering for? That's the reason why, if you ask the question in your life, so if I need to surrender to somebody to get his contract for me, then I am surrendering to this contract giving authority because I want this contract. That's a form of surrender, but that's not what we're talking about here. So the first step is surrendering to someone who can empower us. Therefore, we call it God. The God could be Alpa Devada or Ishta Devada or Kula Devada, or it could be any form our parents have taught us. They've even given you very different. Saraswati, go and practice it before the exam. Lakshmi, before you go to the job. Parvati, before you take a travel. Something like that. So they're given you systematically for every benefit that you want. There's a deity to surrender. And every fear that you want to quell, overcome, a deity to surrender. Therefore, the first step is those who want some worldly pleasures or to get out of the worldly grief. That's the reason we are the person surrendering to the gods who will give this one. And this is called bhakti. This is the level of bhakti. And of course, if you go into Narada Bhakti Sutram, it will be 10 different steps for this and all that. You all know it. That's step one. We got to be in the step one. If you don't have the step one, you can't jump into it unless you come from the Purva Janma part. Therefore, the youngsters in us should inculcate this to our youngsters, that you pray to God. Don't even think because just because you know Vedantam that you know all these are not really true. There is no separate God for education, separate God. No, don't have that arrogance. Go back and teach them in the simple terms. There are many gods for each one. Why? Because Ishvara Pranidhanam has to be embedded into the child's mind. Then comes a time, well, God helps me, but I also have to work very hard. God makes everything coming into the fall into place. But this is keep on going through. I don't think my knowledge is good enough to really transcend this. This is not also what I want. So what is that? Why is that God is giving all this? Because God has got a power to give me all this. Why can't I be the God? Why is that he has got something to give it to me which I don't have? So the first step, Ishvara was an instrument for you, just a means to get what you want. If I pass the exam, I'll break the coconut. Whether God wants coconut or not, we didn't even ask him. But he's an instrument. The scale may be different. You may build a temple for God. Still, it is like breaking coconuts. You are in step one. Step two is God becomes not the sadhana, but becomes a lakshya. I want to be like God. Now, if you want to be like God, who I had to surrender? I can surrender to God, of course. But I need to surrender to those who actually say you can be God. Either because they know it or they become one. Is it not? So you only go to those people who can give you what you need. Therefore, the second stage of surrender is surrender to Shastras. Shastras tell you about God, Vedas, and the Apta Purushas, the Acharyas, the Gurus. So surrendering to a Guru is a higher level of bhakti. It is very difficult to accept, understand. But as an aspirant of learning things correctly, now we know we need to climb on the first step. Naturally, if you're on the first step strongly footed, the God himself will direct you towards the second step, where you will seek Guru. But when you seek the Guru, or when you study the Shastras, do we surrender? Again, you need to practice and surrender it. That's the second step. That's also Ishvara Pranidhanam. Here the Ishvara comes in the form of Shruti and the Gurus. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara. It's not a upachara varta. It's not just a flattery to the Guru. We see the Ishvara and Guru. Bhavana is very important. Don't look at him as a bodied, embodied person, dark, black, fair, short, tall, immaterial. Then you go to the third step. What happened? The first step you stood steadfast, God lifted to the second step. Second step you took steadfast. The Shastras and the Shastra Acharyas lifts you up to the third step. The third step is what Bhagavan calls Jnanicha Paradarishya. That is one who surrenders to Atma. Because if that Ishvara is outside, he is always outside. How closer I am. But many matas stop at the second step. Even Vivekananda, when he was young as Narendranath, when Ramakrishna Paramahansa tells him, look, once you understand the Maya and transcend Maya and become Parabrahman, you will be like a salt doll made out of the salt, falling on the water, just melts away, one with the water. Advaita Anubhuti. So young Narendra was full of virya and vitality, and he says, well, I don't want to be that. I can't enjoy it. It's like, like a bee standing outside the honey bottle is better because it can drink the honey and stay. And of course, Ramakrishna Paramahansa gave him Diksha, and Vivekananda coached this later. So that is where, you have this kind of a Dvaitam where God is different, Purusha different from Prakriti, they are distinct, and all that is moved away and say everything is Parabrahman, but we become part of it, becomes Visesha Dvaitam, Vasishtha Dvaitam. To be near the God, to be like God, to be next to Him, to be enjoying the God's presence. That's also truth. But falling into that, do I become insentient? No. The examples of falling into honey or falling into the water is only a simple drishtanta, because they are not right example. Because why? Because the honey or the ocean is not sentient. It's not consciousness. It's insentient. You don't become jadam. You don't become a prakriti laya. You become the Atma. You become the Satchidanandam. You become fully blessed. If I take a handful of water from the sea, I can't call it a sea. It's sea water. Perfectly fine. This is where Ramanuja is trying to explain to you. But when it becomes the vikalpam in love, when it is not the vikalpam, it becomes a sea, it is sea. But sea is insentient. So remember, there's an example. So you should go back to the consciousness. So Ishvara Pranidhanam is bringing God into the dhyanam and samadhi and bringing God in front of it. And we already saw it. We saw in the Vitarka Samadhi, he put a Ganesh picture and everything. But here we're talking about Pranidhanam, Visesha Bhakti. So I think I would stop it here. I think what we need is, next question is, we should really ask, who is this Ishvara? Okay. Patanjali so far has not talked about Ishvara. We don't know Ishvara. Is he Krishna, Rama, Shiva, Ganesha, Jesus, Allah, or something new? What is this? So we will probably take it in the next class. So we finish it now. We can say it together. Om Satoma Satgamaya
Asatoma Satgamaya
Jyotirgamaya Amritamaya Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Shanti.